Hi, welcome to the Poultry Keepers Podcast. I'm Rip Stalvey, and together with Mandolin Royal and John Gunnerman, we're your co-hosts for this show, and it's our mission to help you have a happy, healthy, and productive flock. In this special installment of the Poultry Keepers Podcast, we unearth a treasured conversation with Danny Feathers. Our conversation traverses the art of nurturing and showcasing the elegant white Leghorns, a breed that captured Danny's heart and expertise. This interview has become a part of Danny's enduring legacy. The audio captured via a telephone conversation may not boast high fidelity, yet it carries the weight of wisdom and passion. Originally preserved for the American Poultry Association's educational archive, it faced oblivion when the site underwent a digital renovation. Against all odds, this interview resurfaced from the depths of a forgotten computer alongside another gem. These recordings, once all lost, will now grace our upcoming podcast episodes, allowing these voices to resonate once more. We invite you to join us in this poignant journey as we relive Danny's dedication to his beloved white Leghorn.
So you're looking at standard, that's just a 2-point deduction. So if you got that, you understand you're already at a 98-point bird if everything else is perfect. But in the front end on them, that bottom line is just as important as that top line. And in heart growth, just like anything else, legs on the outside of the body, you don't want them not knees. You don't want them legs close together. And I like to see some bone to them, not the spindly-legged bird. But it's not. My breeding program isn't rocket science. It's knowing that standard, knowing the picture in my mind's eye of what I want, and then understanding the weakness and the strength of every bird that I breed. I like to sit and watch. I'll watch for a long time before I ever make up my mind. I want to see how that bird carries itself across the ground. Does it drop its tail? Does it drop its wings when it's walking? Does it stand different than it does when it walks? You know, it all.
So many times.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so many times I see people put them in a showcase to pick out the best bird. But I don't see how you can do a really good job of that. You need to see that bird around. What does he look like when he's walking? It's just totally different bird.
Right. I had somebody tell me one time, I like videos better when I look at birds because I can tell. I take a lot of pictures. I post a lot of pictures, but I don't pose a damn bird one. When I throw it up on that deal, I let it gather itself, and those are natural poses. And that's because I picture that stuff. I don't have to sit there poke and prod, and I'm not going to sit there and poke and prod. I won't do it when I'm judging, and I won't do it when I'm picking breed cows or breed fowl. When you
That's interesting.
When you've got to sit and mess with a bird up on Champion Road for 5, 10, 15 minutes to get that bird to look like it's supposed to, there's two things that's happened here. Either we're helping a buddy or we don't understand what all's up there. And I tell you, one thing that I think will really help new people is they need to learn this. If it's not on one side of that mating, it's not going to be on any of that offspring. You know, if you don't have, if both birds have got no breast, don't sit there and hold your breath because you're going to turn blue. You're not going to have a chick come out of there with any place.
Exactly right.
And don't buy birds from me and then buy birds from a leather Leghorn breeder and cross them because you don't know what anything's going to do.
Usually what you're going to wind up with is a big mess.
Yeah, you're going to end up with a bunch of eaters. But what's worse than that is they'll take them offspring and they'll put whoever had the bigger name between the two people and they go, well, these are so-and-so's birds. And that's wrong. When you add somebody's name to it, you're generally trying to sell birds. And I try to let the birds speak for themselves. Go and just breed what you buy and breed them for several years, 3, 4 years, and understand what they produce. If the trio you bought, and I would say my favorite way of doing it is splitting them. So I breed a single mate, the male over the 2 females that came. And therefore, I've got 2 lines. I don't care if them females are full sisters. They both don't carry the same genes.
Exactly.
Now I've got 2 families. Okay. I've got 2 families right there. The next year, I can take the best son out of one side and bring back to his mama. Do the same way on the other side. And then I can take that cock bird and I can breed to the best females out of each one of them, single mated. And I can split this sucker way up. And guess what? I don't ever got to go out and get something again. Because if I keep breeding them like that, look, they're not dogs. I bred brother and sister 7 years in a row, and I never lost layability, hatchability, vigor, fertility, any of that. Even in the UKC, you're allowed to breed brother and sister every 4 years. But how can you set a line and start consistency when you're adding something new to them all the time?
It's just like making a milkshake. You just keep stirring it up.
Exactly.
What happens?
On a minimum, it's 3 years for the blood to settle when you had something to do. And more people pay attention to the male than they do the female. They'll spend, this come up in a discussion with another guy that I did a show with. And he said, I've had guys come to my house and spend 3 or 4 hours picking out the right rooster. And then they want to buy a female. And he said, they just go and buy one that's got the prettiest feathers. He said, I'm thinking to myself, wow, you have no idea what you're doing. And he's exactly right.
Spot on.
But if you buy a trio of chickens, and even if you don't separate them and do as I do, if those birds cannot produce at a minimum as good as they are, then you're probably not ever going to have nothing there.
Exactly.
You know, I've heard stories, a lot of guys will sell, they win a lot with this, and this male line. Old English people seem to be really big on female and male lines, which I don't understand. I don't know why you can't get both sexes for one bird. I don't want to try to get the whole world mad. That's what I want to go into people is both standards, ABA and APA, are breeder manual. If you will pick females that match whatever variety of bird or whatever breed of bird, if you pick a female that meets that written description in color and in type, and the same on the male, then you should be able to produce both sexes. That's not a lot of new people go, that's what they judge by. That's what you need to breed by. They're trying to see how close you came to that standard.
Exactly right.
Well, I know a lot of people don't like to get into it in any depth as a lot of us do.
I think that's part of the problem. If you don't get into it in depth, your birds are going to be the one that's paying the price for that.
Oh, exactly.
They're just going to amount to hardly anything at all.
Tell you a little story. Years ago, I lived in town just a mile from where I live now. And wintertime, I had a shed back there, and I'd bring all my Leghorn and Rock Bantam males home, and I'd put them in that shed where it's heated. And as I'd cull out birds as they matured, what I considered the number 2, I had 2 buddies, one liked the Plymouth Rocks and one liked the Leghorn. And I'd give them the number 2 because I was assuring myself that if something happened, I'd have some place to go back. I wouldn't have to go get blood from someone else and add into my birds and basically start over. Bad luck would have it, I had a fire and I lost every male and every Plymouth Rock male I owned. Rip, is there any way we can hold on here just a minute?
Sure.
I got a
Go
phone call coming. All right, Rip, are you there?
I'm there.
I apologize.
That's okay.
But anyway, okay. A big fear for me, and it happened, and I didn't know what to do. And then I got thinking, you know what? I put them birds out on them farms just in case something like this happened. So I went back, and I took my toe punch book with me, and I went back and got birds. In those White Rocks, I run 4 main families, and then I have 4 sub-families that are crossing out of them. And in the Leghorns, I run 4 families, and then I've got 4 sub-families out of them. I went back and I found birds that maybe they didn't have the best comb, but everything else was there. And I brought them back. And Rip, I never missed a beat. I went right on. And it was because I put them out. I put some insurance out somewhere. And in White Leghorns, he got them in the late 30s, early 40s. he never added anything to it. I've had them since 1970 when I gathered eggs from him. I've never added nothing. And I've tried crossing on different lines, but they don't ever stay. But if you take and breed one family over here, and I gave you the exact trios out of the same family, I can come to you 5 years later and get a bird from you. Put that in mind, and guess what? That's as long as you haven't added anything to that. And that is the best way to bring vigor back to your line.
Agreed.
By putting the same blood back in it. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'd like to loop back to, we were talking a while ago, or you were talking about heads on birds. One of the things that I'm noticing down here in the South is a lot of the females are not getting that nice lock comb to it. It's just a perfectly straight comb.
What we call a hard comb.
How would you fix that?
Let's discuss combs before I go into how I fix that. I'm seeing a lot of large fowl, and I see Bannings do it too, where the female's comb gets big, but it's got a thumbprint in the side of it. So the whole comb flops. It doesn't lop, it flops. It flops over because there is a thumbprint, okay? Otto Niehaus had a strong disdain for females that did that, or females that had the double lop like a Minorca, okay? Now, if you look, a lot of them are going to argue with me, but it doesn't matter how hard and how loud they yell, they're still wrong. A double lop comb, whether it's single or not, is not a Leghorn comb. That is a Minorca comb.
Exactly.
Okay? Now, Otto believes it should be a disqualification. I've thought on it for years, not sure, but I do agree it is a Minorca comb, where it starts one way and flips the other way for the double lop in the front. But when they have the females that have these teeth combs and it gets that thumbprint and it flops, it's not a lop. Let's look at a lop comb. A lop comb will have the first 2 points standing erect, with the third one tilting, the fourth one tilting a little further, and the fifth one tilting further yet, with the blade going ahead and laying over. That is a lop comb. Now, if you'll pick that comb up and look at it, you'll find that there's no thumbprint there on that. Now, you can get there's two reasons that I've noticed that females' combs won't lop. One is they're too small. They don't ever get any size to them. And two is that they are too beefy. And they really have a wide base. But get too beefy, there's too much comb before you get point.
Exactly. I agree with that.
What I look for when you want a lock comb female is look at your male's head and stay away from them beefy comb males. Look for a male that's got a blade that is lively, is what I call it, but it has a jiggle whenever he turns his head. He's on alert. He's looking around, okay? And that blade is wiggling, okay? And those are what I breed to get that lop comb. I used to sell, I won a show up at Southeast Kansas one time at Girard. The guy had called me and he wanted to buy a Leghorn male for his daughter and asked me if I had one. I said, yes, I do. I said, I got one. I said, for your daughter, I said, I'll let you have it for $15. When the dust and the feathers had settled and that bird was sugary and cheap, and he come up to me and goes, I bet that bird's not for sale anymore, is it? I said, that bird's still for sale for $15. He said, you're going to let me have that bird for $15? I said, yeah, that's what I told you, ain't it? Because first of all, I gave you my word. I won't go back on that. That's all we got is our word. And I said, the second thing is, he don't fit my breeding program. Well, what do you not like about him? I said, I don't like that bone. He goes, that cone's beautiful. Yeah, it's pretty. It sure is. And I said, you see how beefy it is? And I'm not saying that it was overly large. It was just too beefy before I got to the point. I said, that bird will never produce a lop comb female. Ever. And I said, so therefore, I'm not going to fight that problem. And now you understand why I don't like it. I said, oh, yeah, I still want it. That's when, give me $15 to get him out of that cage. But that, here again, Rip, these guys aren't paying attention. I judged down there at Fort Payne, Alabama, and I got to judge the single combs. And there was 2 different breeders of Leghorn Bantams there, but the Leghorns they were really poor. They were way too soft feathered. They didn't have no bodies to them. Back, front end, they were just white chicken. But all of them had that beefy comb. But if there's no competition, if you've got no competition, what's going to make you try hard?
Nothing.
There's nothing. There's nothing. For years, I had competition in both the rocks and the Bantams, and I run everybody out down here. Well, then I was just competing against myself. I still didn't settle on winning because I don't think that I'm done yet. I still learn something every year. And again, like I said, I pay very little attention to judges' placing because I'm the one feeding them and I'm the one that's going to put them together, and I know where I'm headed.
Exactly right. No sense in feeding a bird you don't like and you can't use.
No. A little off topic, that when I had the red bantam, I learned the first couple of years, I raised just dang near everything to maturity. And I let the school have a bunch of them, and then I let a few friends have some. And I eat a ton of them. Them and the rocks are both good birds to eat. They've got a lot of 4 kids, and they will eat a farm fresh chicken a lot faster than they'll eat a store-bought chicken. But I got to where the reds were just staying right there in that one spot. I wasn't moving forward like I should be. And I finally decided that the reason I wasn't was because I'd go catch a bird, and I like to free-range young birds once they get up so big. I'll open the bins up and let them run on the grass. And I watch them. And I watch how they walk. And I'm telling you, a red should walk like a brick. And so I got to where I started culling them with a 22 rifle. And I didn't let them just lay there and die. They were dead. I butchered them. But I didn't want to go grab one and say, her back has a little bit of an incline to it. But look at her wing. Look at this. Look at that. No, she didn't have type. And type was first and foremost in the standard and in my breed team. By me shooting them, I didn't have to worry about me ever breeding that chicken. I didn't care what that toe box was. I didn't care how that wing was or none of that. She didn't have something in her type to begin with, or his type. I shot him. And before long, Rip, I couldn't shoot no more. I didn't have any birds with any incline. I'd never, ever raised a red that sloped, had the rainy day carriage. Now, got to be careful at 22. Sometimes they'll go through them and get one you didn't want to get. But I didn't worry about, I went and caught that bird. I didn't like the way she walked, but man, that wing is outstanding. Or, man, her feather quality. Type comes first. It doesn't matter what breed of chicken that I'm working with.
Exactly right.
So.
Exactly right.
Like I said, before I put this house here, the rocks stayed on the south side of the driveway and the Leghorns are on the north side of the driveway. And it wasn't, I'd come out in the morning and turn everything loose. And I had an old bulldog that ran loose, and he didn't bother chickens, but he'd keep anything away. And come out to feed in the evening, and there'd be 1,000 young birds come to me and meet me at the feed barrels by the driveway. And Leghorns on one side and rocks on the other side. And they didn't cross that driveway. And they ran on peskin. And I went years, I didn't even have to wash a chicken. That's how clean they'd stay. But by running loose, they birth there, more better body. Nice little light rain at night on them really helps them feathers.
Oh, man, does it ever.
And it also tells you about your feather quality. But like I said, for me, it's not rocket science. It's understanding that standard, understanding where I'm going and how am I going to get there.
And that's the key to it.
Yeah. And when you really become a good breeder, you have straight up, and you got to breed out of that problem that you created. You've bred yourself into a corner. Now you need to figure out how to get out of it.
Exactly.
And that's
right.
when you're really going to learn something.
Exactly right. I sure appreciate you taking the time to talk with her. I know you're a busy guy and you got things to do, and I don't want to hold you up all day, but I'm like you, I could talk chickens pretty much all day long and it wouldn't upset me at all.
That's right.
But
I do it.
Look forward to talking with you another day here before too much longer on white rocks and rocks in general. I know you've bred more than just white rocks. I know you've had bards and no telling what else you've had thrown in.
I've had Colombian, black, buff, partridge. Just at one time, I had every color recognized in the ABA on rose-cone bantam.
Wow.
Wow. That would have been back in the early 80s. But I've had just about every breed in both standards. That's what you get when you got a dad that's just about it as you are.
Are you trying to say it didn't fall too far from the tree?
That's right there at the bottom of that trunk, I'll guarantee you.
Danny, thanks again so much. And I know the folks are going to get a lot out of what you have to say here. It's just so good that you would take the time to share with that and hopefully help some other folks along their journey in chickens.
I hope they can understand it. I mean, it's not, I'm not building a spaceship going to outer space. And the good thing about it, the mistakes you make can be aged. So that's the only way you look at it.
Exactly right. Bud, you have a good rest of the day, and we will talk to you again real soon.
All right, Rip. Have a good day. Hope it helps.
I'm sure it will. Thanks, Danny.
You bet, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us this week. And before you go, make sure you subscribe to our podcast so you can receive new episodes right when they're released, and they're released every Tuesday. And if you're enjoying this podcast, we'd like to ask you to drop us an email at poultrykeeperspodcast@gmail.com and share your thoughts about the show. So thank you again for joining us for this episode of the Poultry Keepers Podcast. We'll see you next week.